Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, everything about the ETA is bad. I want Thailand to know this. Well, if you can see from the thumbnail for this video, the thumbnail, you can see the little quote there in the meme. It's everything you are doing is bad. I want you to know this. That's a great line from a great film, Ghostbusters 2, Dr. János Proha. I'll put a clip in the description below to the clip where I got that line from. It's a great line. He's like this eccentric, sort of cantankerous art curator at a museum in the movie Ghostbusters 2. But he's like, he just finds fault with everything. So he's walking around going, everything you are doing is bad. I want you to know this. You know, well, I would like Thailand to know that this ETA is just, everything about it is bad. Let me dig into it. I thought of making this video after reading a recent article from the Pattaya Mail. That's pattayamail.com. Article is titled, "The Real Deal About the End of One of Thailand's Unpopular Address Forms." Quoting directly, according to the Interior Ministry, and this is important, this is Interior talking now, and I've discussed in other videos, Ministry of Foreign Affairs has talked about a lot of stuff in the past, and you need to be very careful with listening to that because it's not going to be them that administers immigration matters, especially at border checkpoints and within the kingdom. At the end of the day, that's the Interior Ministry. So quoting again, according to the Interior Ministry, the ETA or electronic travel authorization should be in place for all visa-exempt foreigners, the ones from 93 countries who receive 60 days on arrival. These countries include all the nations providing significant numbers of international vacationers. Yeah, let's make it harder for those people to get in. You know, this government goes on and on about how it wants to encourage tourism. Real encouraging. Ring fence the whole country with a bunch of digital bureaucracy. You have to fill out a bunch of forms and nonsense before coming in. Meanwhile, it's very disingenuous to say that, oh, you have a visa exemption, but you still have to do this electronic travel authorization. What is travel authorization if it isn't a visa? Quoting further, these guys and gals, probably by Easter next year, and this is a article from Mr. Kenyon down there, again, tip of the hat to him. He's probably not wrong. Under the current circumstances, that seems to be when they're talking about possibly rolling this out. Looks like April, May of next year, 2025. My hope is that in future meetings amongst policymakers, people bring up the fact that this is a terrible idea. It doesn't really concern the issues that it claims to. They say, oh, we need it for vetting. Well, we've already got those systems in place. Biometrics is out there for one. Then we've got the app system. Then we've got the PBIC system. Meanwhile, they just hired 330 new immigration officers. I discussed that in another video. Why not use those people? Why not have them do their job? Why ring fence the country with extra obstacles for tourists to get in here? Are you trying to are you trying to dismiss it? Are you trying to I'm getting so angry I can't even say it. Are you trying to diminish tourism here? Because that's what you're going to do. You're going to end up doing that. You know, it's just a fact. You really think people are going to happily fill out all these forms and nonsense for their visa exemption? No, that's a visa. That was the problem we had before. Now and I love this. The bureaucrats have all just, it's like manna from heaven or something, digitization. Why is that? Because there's no accountability. I've been dealing with this in the U.S. immigration system for going on a decade now. It's just gotten increasingly digitized, and the system has gotten worse and worse and worse. Thailand, do not get dragged into this malaise, this bureaucratic neo-Soviet malaise where everything requires a form, fill out this, do that, da-da-da-da-da. It doesn't help anything. Its so-called benefits are non-existent. We already have the mechanisms in place to vet these people. We don't need this system. We know what this system looks like. It's basically a carbon copy of the Thailand pass going back into COVID, which was a terrible idea then because there wasn't any good reason for it, as we now know. But meanwhile, there's this continued drive to keep imposing this stuff, and to what end? It doesn't actually provide any benefits to speak of, and it could dramatically and detrimentally impact the Thai tourism sector. Quoting further, these guys and gals, probably by Easter next year, have to apply online for permission to enter Thailand. How is permission to enter Thailand any different than a visa? Quoting further, and on permitted arrival will be able to pass through immigration's electronic gates at entry points with a personally provided QR code. I don't like any of that for a variety of different reasons. First off, we just hired 330 new immigration officers. I want in-person vetting of foreigners. I want somebody looking them in the eye. Look, there is an intangible, there's an art to what these guys are doing. I know you don't really think that, and I know it's sort of strange to say that about immigration, but you know, I rant a lot about bureaucracy. Sometimes it's needed. We do need people on our borders. We need border checkpoints. We need border guards. And we need them looking these people in the eye. Yes, we have biometrics. Yes, digitization can create some extra benefits, and they're great tools for enforcement and for assessment of people coming into the kingdom. But we really need eyeballs on people coming in. Somebody could be letter perfect on all of their documentation. You just look at him and you say, I want to put this guy into secondary inspection. There's something about him that just bothers me. You know, some computer system with a QR code does not have that discernment. Meanwhile, there's all kinds of ways that Kafka-esque Catch-22 style situations can arise where legitimate tourists just get caught up in this sort of whirlpool of bureaucratic nonsense. They throw up their hands and they say, I'm either not coming to Thailand or I'm never coming back to Thailand. Again, there's no major benefit accrued by this. That said, and furthermore, this push toward everything being on a QR code. Why don't you just tattoo it to our forehead and you can just radar stamp us every time, you know, what do they use at the grocery store? You know, they use that laser blinker thing and just boop, okay, you can come into Thailand. You know, this is that level of Orwellian we're talking about. And meanwhile, that level of Orwellian does not actually enforce immigration law better. If anything, it's a substandard way of dealing with it. Again, we have personnel. These people should be eyeballing these people coming in. You know, yes, it is a benefit for Thai nationals. I use my Thai passport all the time when I'm coming in. I get to put the passport in an electronic reader, put my finger on the thing, it verifies my fingerprint with my passport, boom, I'm in the country. I'm Thai. I've been vetted about as much as you can possibly be vetted for a foreigner in Thailand. That said, somebody who's brand new, oh, I filled out an online form, that's a great way to vet. No, it isn't. Immigration themselves should be vetting those people. That's exactly what their job is, and they should be doing it. They shouldn't be going through QR-coded cattle ramps or whatever. No. You know, that's silliness. Again, when you get into this sort of, and I hate to bring up the World Economic Forum, but it all smells like what they're selling. You know, you get into this, and when you really deep dive into it, it's nonsensical. It sounds like it's more security. It sounds like it's more vetting. But the reality of it is it's not. Because as it's said in this article itself, actual immigration officers are no longer going to be eyeballing people. They're going to use this QR code. There's a million ways that you can game systems. I remember I took a course in college by a professor I rather liked. He was kind of a cantankerous old guy, but the course was political corruption. He used to joke with me all the time that I got an A in that course, and he was like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? But he did talk about political corruption sort of in a broad sort of waterfront kind of sense of the topic. And he said at the end of the day, political corruption comes down to one thing. It's bypassing systems. It's systems analysts and hacking systems. If anybody here thinks criminals, especially transnational criminals, are unable to game some online electronic travel authorization and get their little QR code that now is sort of their label that they're okay and then just sort of slip into Thailand, if people think that's not possible, I have a movie recommendation for you. Go watch the movie The Jackal with Bruce Willis, Sidney Poitier, and Richard Gere. It's a sort of a remake, although not quite a remake, but I think it was in the vein of the original Day of the Jackal movie. But again, it shows sort of in the 90s. He has all his documentation. There's ways to game these systems, and he does that, and he uses them to, you know, go through all kinds of checkpoints and things. In that movie, they were still using actual physical people, which you find out later in the film, that's actually what got him caught, was he had to interact with live people as opposed to just a bunch of paperwork and bureaucracy, which is faceless and just kind of a conveyor belt that moves you on down the road. Point I'm trying to make is This is not an optimal system. That said, quoting further, the individuals will likely be refused boarding at airports or refused entry at seaports and border checkpoints unless the bureaucracy has been successfully completed. Well, as we've discussed in other videos, apps can already do that. If you're in the app system as somebody they don't want to let in, you can't get on the plane and come to Thailand. We already have this functionality. Meanwhile, really, we want to encourage more bureaucracy and we want to impose that upon tourists, people who are coming here to just drop money off in the country. That's who we want to put all this onus on? Really? Is that a great idea? Quoting further, although the ETA required for every visit will be notionally free, that's not the end of the story. Yeah, it ain't. Quoting further, Thailand will introduce the long-delayed tourist tax of 300 baht by air and 150 baht by land and sea, which I didn't even know about this 150 baht one. That just sort of came up out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from. Meanwhile, again, this tourist tax has been a bad idea since whoever came up with it. It does nothing but make Thailand look bad. If you impose this, I think it's going to make people resentful, and therefore it could drive away more tourists. Quoting further, it has long been argued that collecting cash at entry points would lead to long queues and much frustration by visitors and immigration officers alike. ETA provides the answer by insisting you pay beforehand and electronically by card. How about just don't do it? It's not the answer, it's a worse idea. You're creating a ring fence, you're creating obstacles for people to get into Thailand. Meanwhile, you know, bureaucracy, you're so desperate for cash and for revenue, for taxes. You didn't seem all that desperate when you shut down our economy for 2.5 years at your behest. You know, we had to go through, oh, just deal with it. Your business isn't open. You have to deal with it. Now you have to deal with it. You know, this is the knock-on effect of 2 years of no revenue. Sorry, you don't get your budgets the way you want them right now because we're still building back up the economy to get the revenue stream back up to where it needs to be. Instead of trying to drive away tourists with nonsensical digital bureaucracy and taxes that really shouldn't be applied in the first place, how about you do your job of trying to get more tourists into the country, not trying to force them out or fleece them coming in. And then meanwhile, it looks terrible. This tourism tax was a bad idea across the board when it was come up with. And meanwhile, you're going to put that in everyone's face every single time they try to come into Thailand utilizing this electronic travel authorization. Does no one see how that could be a bad idea? Quoting further, at some stage in 2025, the ETA system will be extended to include all foreigners entering Thailand, including all non-immigrant visa holders such as retirees. I did another video contemporaneously with this one, and I urge those who are watching this video, stay tuned. But yeah, there's a video where I specifically talk about retirees and non-immigrant visa holders and this ETA. It's a bad idea there too. That said, quoting further, such a system is becoming common worldwide. Neat. You know, a lot of systems were common worldwide over hundreds of years that Thailand completely ignored. Thailand, you need to get back into your own headspace of taking care of your own problems. I don't care what the rest of the world's doing. You know, it's like my mama once said, if everybody's jumping off a bridge, you going to jump off a bridge too? No, it's not a good idea. This is a terrible idea. And by the way, the rest of the world, are you talking about the Western world, the so-called golden billion? The folks that are sinking into a morass of bureaucracy and debt and all kinds of problems that, you know, at this point are almost systemic, and I worry that they'll ever be able to solve them. That's our role model? Hey, let's make the Soviet Union our role model too. Let's go back to that. Maybe, you know, come on. Quote, or the other one that they'll then, well, China does this. Neat. Everybody has social credit up in China. You can't walk around without everybody knowing who you are and every little detail about you, having no privacy. And look, I got no beefs with China. China wants to be China, you be China. You like the CCP up there, that's great. But why does that mean that we in Thailand have to do it? I'm tired of this tone of like, well, worldwide people do it. Neat. You know, go back to there. This is Thailand. This is not what we're doing. And there's a great line. I can't remember what the movie was where it's got Billy Bob Thornton in it, and, you know, it's in Louisiana, and somebody shows up and says, well, you know, we're from the headquarters, and you need to be doing this. And Billy Bob Thornton turns around and says, well, hey, this ain't Shreveport. You know, this ain't Shreveport here in Thailand, okay? It's Thailand. I don't care what the rest of the world's doing. The rest of the world does a whole bunch of stupid stuff that Thailand doesn't do all the time. We're not sitting there encouraging that. And I'm not saying the writer here is encouraging that, But even the observation, I got to bring up the fact that just because everybody else is doing it, or it seems like, and that's the other thing, it seems that way, just because it seems that way doesn't mean it's a great idea. Quoting further, for example, in the UK, which starts its electronic entry bureaucracy for all visitors next month, basically ETA replaces decisions by immigration officers on the ground by prior electronic checking of wannabe entrants. We already have prior checking by wannabe entrants. It's called the APP system, Advanced Passenger Processing System. We have it. So that's not the thing. And then meanwhile, what, the UK is going to be the model for things that we do? You know, no offense to anybody, and I have a lot of British friends, and they're real good people, but I'm looking over the UK at this particular moment, and there isn't anything that I look at that I'm sitting there going, you know, Thailand should take a page from their book. Let's go do that. No, I'm sorry. Look, at the end of the day, Thailand, really rethink this, please. Because I think the minute you impose this thing, it's just going to be one giant boondoggle that's going to do nothing but cost Thailand money, cost Thailand tourists, and possibly have a tremendous negative impact on the tourism sector here in the Kingdom of Thailand generally.